So we start with the presentation of our project with the City of Zug. I'm David Perrenoud from ti&m in Zurich. We also have an office in Frankfurt, and we do IT consulting in Switzerland and Europe. How many of you have heard of the project of the Zug digital identity? 3, 4, 5, 6? Cool. So from June 2017 to November, we proposed to the City of Zug to base their digital identity on a blockchain-based solution. So we had already worked on some blockchain projects. For example, we did over-the-counter trading, we do some token sale stuff, some KYC processes. But here it was like a romantic idea where we wanted once to do something for the citizens. And we really wanted to use blockchain technology to give something to them and give them maybe a glimpse of the future of what they could get. So we built this digital identity, and when we released, we got a ton of traction on social media and on traditional media. For example, we had the World Economic Forum, who did a small video and got 500,000 views. There were some nice comments. For example, someone said, yeah, but still the stores in Zug only open until 6 p.m. in the week, 5 p.m. on Saturday, and are closed on Sunday. And this will be my first conclusion of the talk, is things don't exist in a vacuum. The City of Zug is like 30,000 citizens. It's the crypto valley, as everybody say, but still by Swiss standards, it is a small city. Then we got an article from the Tagesanzeiger, and that was quite cool, because they were talking about the e-government, which will have some framework to start working on in end of 2018. But at the end of the article, they actually said, they concluded, in Zug you can already get a digital ID. And this will be my second conclusion for the talk, is if you do something with blockchain, it's not an idea. Blockchain is that you have to prove that it works. And this is what happened with Bitcoin. The idea already existed, but finally someone proved that it could work. And let's do this for digital identity. So my talk, I will start with the current situation, which is not that good for digital identity. Then present our vision, our solution, and then I will do a couple of demos. You can interrupt me at any moment if you have a question. Otherwise, I could just live stream this, and then we will see how much time we have left. So the problem, there are many. So first, there is a bad security overall. Digital identity is fragmented. It's hacked all the time. We can see, for example, there were 3 billion Yahoo accounts that were hacked. So some people think, yeah, maybe I trust Google, I trust Facebook more to get security right. We will see how this will evolve in the future. There is another problem, is that the data is actually duplicated in all the services we have. So this is really expensive to do, and this is also not really a good idea to do in general with identity. This also means that if you want to have a digital identity on all the systems and have this all synchronized together, you need to connect all the systems. So if you work in IT or if you do some consulting, try connecting 2 systems, try connecting 3, then try connecting n systems together. If you work in an administration and you have to handle all of this data, you also need to update it. So try to update it in one system and then try to have the same data in all the systems replicated. So there were already some work to have a federated identity, which means you have standards, and then you try to have the same standard for everybody, and have all the identity systems centralized but still work together. This could actually solve the first 2 points. So this could increase the security and increase the data quality, but it doesn't solve the later 3 points that can only be solved with a self-sovereign identity. The problem of digital identity is global. More and more, we need a digital identity. It's still not happening. We have, for example, European regulations, GDPR that is coming, where you have to think about how can you do to delete data that the user wants to be gone. And maybe the right questions would be, how would you do to not save this data in the first place? There are also some state initiatives, some more successful than others. Estonia has been doing digital identity since 2001. A lot of people seem to think that they have a blockchain-based identity, which is not the case. I don't know where this urban myth comes from. If we take Switzerland, we will have a legal framework in 2018. We don't yet have a digital identity because that's how it works. So we have to discuss together first before it happens. In Austria, there is a digital signature. In Germany, there is also the EID. And maybe the honorable mention to the United States of America, where they actually don't have a country-based identity. They do the state by state, so the de facto standard there is the driver's license. In Switzerland, we also have like a little de facto standard that you can act. The idea was that you could use some services using your train membership, and this would be our de facto standard in the future. Maybe not, so we'll see how things evolve. So let's talk about a self-sovereign identity. There was already a good introduction in the talk before from Yolocam. The idea is that you have a total change of mindset. So it's a bit a nihilistic idea that the supreme authority is not the service anymore, it's the user. You have no identity provider, so that means the user are their own identity providers. This is a bit a problem, or will be a problem in Switzerland, because in the law that is currently drafted at the moment, they define what an identity provider is. And if you think about the technology long enough, maybe we won't need this kind of identity providers in the future. So, for example, in some traditional solutions, you have an identifier number, for example, on your pass. And then all the attributes, all the data is actually saved in the identity provider, and you don't have it on your card. So you don't even know what's actually saved on your personal identity. Here, if we put the attributes in control of the user, so that's we put the sovereignty on the user herself, then the access is systematically asked, so that's automatically GDPR compliant. We give the data to the user. Each time some data is used, the user has to be asked because it's not technically possible to do it differently. This also means that we don't put any data on the blockchain. So in self-sovereign identity, the user is, for example, on a device by the user, and we don't save the personal information anywhere else. We also want it interoperable, so we don't want to have it only decentralized. So how this works is you have an institution that can verify something on the user. So in the case of Zug, that was name, first name, date of birth, the place of origin, which is really important in Switzerland. That's like where your grandparents, actually where your grandfather was born, so this is also verified. And this is then attested by some organization, so in this case, the City of Zug. And then another organization who trusts the organization A can then use this data. They can also use it as a login. This means that they don't even have a list of users or don't even have any other security. than the fact that they trust that organization A did the correct job. It's a bit a change of mind, but it's also more secure, because it means you don't have any data duplication, and you don't have any identity theft on the service itself. If you want to steal some identity, then you would have to hack each personal device, which is a lot of effort. So it's also a good idea in general if you want to build a secure system. Now our solutions. In practice, we build this using a technology from Consensus, which is a mobile app, which gives you a unique identifier. And this is also quite cool because smart cards are not very fun anymore. They're a bit lame, and then anybody can download a mobile app. They don't need any password, and they have all the list of attributes. So if you have many institutions giving many attestation, then they are all saved in the same place, which is not only useful but important conceptually. You can also use this app to access other blockchain applications, which you could also do for some of your challenges. The second part we have is the blockchain. This is where everything happens, but actually not a whole lot happens. This is based on a smart contract, which gives you some trust that the user can put their identity there, and the identity will really live on the blockchain. So the attributes are on the phone, but the identity is on the blockchain. And that means that at any time, the user can recover their identity from the blockchain. So instead of going to, let's say, Google to recover everything that you had, you go to the blockchain. And if the blockchain is cryptographically secure, which it has until now, then you can recover your identity and nobody else can. So then, on top of these smart contracts, we define some attributes, attest to them, and then give them directly to the user without going through the blockchain. So this is also really efficient. It means you don't need to touch the blockchain each time you use attestation or receive attestation. You just need at the beginning of an identity and each time when you want to recover it. The third part that we built especially for Zug was a certification portal. And this is where the user entered all their details, where the people in the government office verify this. And it's very old school. It's only open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But it's not that bad because you have at least a bit of human contact. And when you have done this, then you receive on your phone this attestation, and you can use it on the internet, or you will see in the different services that the city will provide. Now a small demo, if you have some questions, maybe. Yes?
I missed the very beginning of your talk, so maybe you covered this, but when you talk about identity, you stress attributes. But most of our identity, for instance, in the case of Facebook, is in terms of transactions. So I'm wondering how, maybe you can explain that again. If I interact with another service, is the transactions that we do, the stuff that I write inside that service, the posts, the content that I create, how do you take care of this part of my identity? Does that stay with the service? Or is that something that we somehow extract and store the self-sovereign identity, and then future services or people that are interested in me can see, can review?
And in addition to that, all the attributes that you do authorize, first name, address, maybe social security number, whatever the service really needs, and I gave it to them, that will be stored alongside all the transactions that he's describing, which essentially makes copies the data of my identity to that service that could in turn be hacked.
So basically the question is attributes versus identity. And then maybe the second question is how do you do so that not everything can be linked together for data privacy. So the attributes, so let's say the identity for us is the blockchain identity. So this is just a technical identity. This is just a number. So everybody can download the application, generate what was in the previous presentation, this D ID, and this doesn't mean anything. The only thing that it means is that you have control over it, and at any point of time you can recover it. And you can also prove, so this is very simple, it's digital signature, you can prove that it's your own. So first problem of, it's actually a problem of Ethereum in general, is that if you lose your Ethereum account, then you cannot do anything. So here you can always recover something. And the second part are the attestations. So the attestations are what you link on top of an identity and that you can disclose to some other person. And the attestation are signed for you, but they are also signed by someone. So anybody can check that the City of Zug actually have signed this data. There is maybe one piece missing, is how do you know who the City of Zug is? And this is not yet solved. I mean, there are many solutions. But basically you have to trust that you have the address of the City of Zug.
Sorry, perhaps I didn't understand, but to me you didn't answer the first question. So identity in terms not of my age, hair color, origin, I don't know, but in terms of who I interact with, what stuff I buy on Amazon, what posts I like on Facebook. That's also part of that's a major part of the digital identity, isn't it? No? Maybe a profile. Okay, maybe
So maybe the question is, how do you link other data, for example, what you do online, to your digital identity? So this really depends on the services. You don't always want to actually prove that everything you bought on Amazon was actually made by you. So, I mean, you could, in theory, you can really attestate anything by anyone. So Amazon could attestate that you have bought a book, and then you can really prove to anyone that it was made by you. But you don't always want to prove all of this stuff that happens online.
Okay, perhaps I understood the concept of digital identity. We can talk afterwards. I would be very interested.
Yeah, another question?
Yes, on the one side, like if you lose your password or your certificate, the City of Zug could reissue it, so you have access to like all your profiles. Second question would be, can you have like pseudonyms, like some multiple users for
Yeah.
data privacy?
So the first question is, if you lose your pass, then what happens? So here there are actually two things that you can lose. You either lose the blockchain identity, which you can recover on the blockchain, or you can lose the attestation, which you could actually save anywhere. So you could even save it on the cloud. That would be the easiest solution if there is not a better one. Or you can just go to the City of Zug and ask a new one.
So the City of Zug can always access all my accounts too?
The City of Zug could keep a backup of all the attestations that they've made, but they don't necessarily have to. So they just need to at least keep a list of all the persons that they verified in order not to give twice the same pass.
But wouldn't it be very much trust towards the City of Zug to have all my passwords to all my accounts?
I mean, this remains to be seen. Who will do backup all of the data of the user? Right now, each time it was the service itself that did the backup for its own service, or Apple and Google that do the backup for everyone else. And maybe there will be someone doing exactly that in the future. And there was a second question, is can you be anonymous with the D IDs? Yes, there are some solutions to generate many of them in order to split it Don't have any microphone? Okay. So you can split the DID in many different ones, and then you can make it so we cannot track you. Yeah. Yes?
What are the services you are exploring in Zug? What are the services used? What is the most frequent one? I'm very curious.
So there will be the Evoting coming. So this is already announced, and then we will see what will be announced publicly.
Just Evoting, nothing else, nothing more?
So this is not yet public by the City of Zug.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Like two things actually, like touching upon this. So the attributes are stored or by the City of Zug, or is it just that they signed the claim and verified it to a certain identity that is like in that like based on that smart contract, or do they store the whole thing? Like that was kind of your question, right? Do they just store that they signed some claim, and that's why they kind of try to keep them in their records, so they are able to prove that they back in the days signed something for you? I mean, that's just what a verifier does. Is it that?
They also
Yeah.
have to be able to revoke it.
Yeah, so there are two problems. So one is,
So there has to be some record.
so once the attestations expire, you want to regenerate them. So for this, they need to keep a copy. And the second one is if they want to revoke, then they also need a copy. But except in this, it doesn't need to be online, so that's the main difference. And the revocation list doesn't need the personal data. So I'll do a quick demo. How much time do we have, actually?
I guess another 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, so we have time. So this is something we haven't shown to other people. But I thought as it's the Ethereum camp, I can show you the first prototype that we did. And this didn't look very nice. We use exactly the same colors and style as the Zug website and build very quickly, I think in a couple of days, a prototype to show them how this could work. So the idea is that you would somehow understand on the left that you need to download an application. And then once it's done, then you would see this QR code. And thankfully, we had already some beta application of the software, and it's still compatible and still working. It's not actually using D IDs at all. And you can see here, the application request information and request my permission. And this we showed to the City of Zug that the people would need to link their blockchain identity. And then the people would need to fill something, and which would be sent to their system. It was also a bit of discussions to know which things would the City of Zug actually verify. For example, would they verify your place, your street address, for example? This is not something that's actually done currently, so it was not included. The email was not included either because it's not something that they can really attest. And then you could use your identity card or some other pass. And then you would kind of send it to the admin interface. And the admin would look something like this. So it's actually completely fake, but it's okay because nobody knows that no buttons are working. They just see that here you can actually click on this. The picture is not working anymore, so that's the only thing that has changed in the protocol.
Where did the picture come from? You didn't submit one.
This comes from the application.
Okay, so you have to submit one as well.
Not really. So in the current version, you don't submit a picture because it's not something that they actually attest.
Okay.
This still needs to be seen how you can really attest this picture. But it could be added in a future version. And then the administrator could click a button, and somehow the phone of the user would be able to scan this QR code, which is actually not really possible, and they would get an attestation. And there's actually no backend behind this, but it still just works by connecting these two together. And then here we had some small example how you could then use your identity to log into the Zug systems or some other systems. And here we also had a nice interface where you could do some digital payments with bitcoins, do some evoting, and something like this. And then we had to build it for real, so this took a bit more time. And this is how it currently works. So it's more or less the same. You have to register, and then we explain to the user what they actually have to do, because we don't assume that they know how this whole blockchain identity stuff works. So they download the app, and then they have to scan a QR code. This was actually the hardest step. Yes, you have a question?
I just want to ask, do you have like a web app, or is it only like Google and Apple devices?
So the private key is only done with a mobile app.
Because you can order data already from City of Zug and US.
So here, and this is actually the step that the user have the most problems with, is actually scanning the QR code. And this is something we discovered only when we did some real testing. And here it's already registered. I can remove it to show you the real demo. So here I have to scan the QR code. It's a bit blurry. Okay. And then you have to fill some details. So this is basically the same as we had in the original one. There are now some additional checks. So for example, if you do the 29th, it doesn't always work. If it doesn't exist, and then you can fill. And there are some nice error messages and everything that you need. And then you have 7 days to go to the office. And when you actually go there, they also have an admin interface. Do you use a username and password to log in? No, of course not. They also have a blockchain identity to log in into their system. Oop. Wait. Oop. Okay, it was too blurry with the projector. Then the admin also receives a login confirmation. And then when they do their logged in, is it working? They're logged in into the system, and they can then confirm some information. So they see here that they receive some data. They can also correct this. And then when they click bestätigen, they will confirm this data, and they won't show a QR code. This was not practical in the real version. So if the administrator clicks bestätigen, it sends a push notification. and then the user receives directly on their mobile their attestation. And they now have a Zug ID that they can use.
So that is what it's like. Is that
Yes.
live? That's live.
Yeah.
And the fake thing you showed before.
Yeah.
What's that?
Just a prototype.
Okay.
So there.
Evolution.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So you could register me now an account for the City of Zug.
No, because this is just our test infrastructure. So the keys are not the same. So that's the main difference. Actually, if you try to hack this system or the one of the City of Zug, I mean, if you hack this system, then you don't get the right keys. And this is the main point of security in the system, is everything is based on the keys of the identity. And now I have my Zug identity. I can log in, and I have access to all my services. So to wrap up, so blockchain innovation is not easy, it's hard, and things don't exist in a vacuum. You have to test this in the real world. And we will have Evoting soon, which is a huge problem, very hard to solve, but very interesting on the blockchain. And my second and last conclusion is that now blockchains is here to stay, and we have to show that it can work. Thank you.